Memory is strange. Sometimes the smallest detail stays with us forever, a smell, a sound, a look, while whole years vanish like smoke. Why does the mind remember certain things and erase others? Is forgetting a flaw or a form of wisdom? Philosophers have long obsessed over knowledge, truth, and identity. But only a few have asked what forgetting means. Today, let's explore the hidden philosophy of memory and forgetting, how they shape who we are, what we believe, and what we can become. This is not a scientific lecture. It's an invitation to think, to look inside your own mind and ask, what do I remember? What have I chosen to forget? And who am I because of it? Memory is not just a mental archive. It's the foundation of knowledge itself. When you say, I know who I am, what you really mean is, I remember who I've been. The English philosopher John Locke built an entire theory of identity around this idea. He argued that you are the same person as long as you can remember your past experiences. If memory connects your present consciousness to your past actions, that chain of memory is your identity. But there's a problem. Memories are not perfect copies. They are reconstructions. Each time you remember, you subtly rewrite the event. You imagine details that never happened, forget parts that did, and fill the gaps with emotion. So if our identity is built on memory, and memory itself is unstable, then our sense of self is constantly shifting. David Hume went even further. He claimed that there is no permanent self at all, only a bundle of perceptions and memories that change from moment to moment. What we call me is just the story memory tells to create coherence. And then comes the twist. If forgetting removes pieces of that story, does it destroy the self, or simply edit it? Nietzsche would argue the latter. He believed that memory can become a prison, a weight that keeps us tied to old guilt, resentment, and pain. To live, he said, we must also forget. Forgetting, for Nietzsche, is not failure but strength, the power to let go of what no longer serves life. So maybe the question isn't whether forgetting weakens memory, but whether it gives us the freedom to remember differently. Imagine never forgetting. Every heartbreak, every mistake, every embarrassment, alive in perfect clarity. Would that make you wiser? Or simply trapped in an endless past? The French philosopher Henri Bergson offered a beautiful insight. To forget is not to lose memory, but to make room for the new. For Bergson, forgetting is not a defect of the brain, but an act of selection. The mind filters the flood of experiences, keeping only what helps us live and act. If we remembered everything, we would drown in detail. Forgetting is what allows the present to exist. Nietzsche agreed, but with a darker edge. He believed that forgetting is an active power, the ability to erase pain and guilt so that new creation can begin. Without forgetting, there is no forgiveness. Without forgetting, there is no renewal. Yet modern philosopher Paul Ricoeur warned that forgetting can also be dangerous. When we erase too much, when nations forget injustice, when individuals deny their past. For Ricoeur, the ethical task is balance. We must remember enough to learn, but forget enough to live. In a sense, forgetting is not the opposite of memory. It's its silent partner. Memory preserves meaning. Forgetting clears the space for new meaning to arise. So who are you, really? If your identity depends on memory, then what happens when memory fails? Think of people suffering from amnesia, Alzheimer's, or simply the passage of time. They forget names, faces, even the meaning of love, yet we still recognize them as the same person. Derek Parfit challenged Locke's memory theory. He suggested that identity is not about remembering specific events, but about psychological continuity. the ongoing flow of thoughts, emotions, and intentions. Even if you forget the past, as long as your current self connects to your previous values and feelings, something of you remains. Hannah Arendt took this even further. She saw forgiveness, and by extension forgetting, as essential to political and personal freedom. If we could never forget, we would be eternally chained to our past actions. Forgiving allows new beginnings. Forgetting allows new identities to emerge. We might say, memory is what roots us, and forgetting is what lets us grow. A tree needs both, deep roots and the freedom to shed old leaves. The philosopher's task, then, is not to choose between remembering and forgetting, but to understand how both are woven into the story we call self. Let's move from the personal to the collective. Can a society forget? Should it? The philosopher Avishai Margalit argued that societies have a duty to remember. To forget atrocities, he said, is to risk repeating them. But collective memory is also selective. Entire generations are taught to remember some events and ignore others. History itself becomes an act of philosophical editing. Paul Ricoeur called this the paradox of memory. That remembering is necessary for justice, yet forgetting is necessary for reconciliation. Think of post-war Germany, South Africa after apartheid, or any culture trying to heal. Memory demands truth, forgetting demands peace. The ethical challenge is to find balance, to remember enough to honor the past and forget enough to move beyond hatred. Perhaps on a collective level, as on a personal one, forgetting is not an erasure but a transformation, turning trauma into understanding and history into wisdom. So what do we learn from all this? Memory and forgetting are not opposites, they are dance partners. One preserves meaning, the other makes meaning possible. Without memory, we lose continuity. Without forgetting, we lose freedom. The philosopher Nietzsche once said that life needs both remembering and forgetting, because to live fully is to constantly recreate oneself. You are not the sum of what you remember. You are the rhythm between remembering and forgetting, between who you were and who you are becoming. So ask yourself, what memory defines you, and what forgotten thing has quietly freed you? Thank you for joining this reflection. If this video made you think, share one memory or one forgotten lesson in the comments below. Until next time, keep questioning, keep remembering, and when needed, allow yourself to forget.